interviewed by a puppet?
It is, and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, I just need to turn off the sound. Okay, we are live. Yay, welcome everyone to First Friday Facebook Live on Ask a Bookkeeper. We are here today. We are here today with Michael Miller, Coach Michael Miller, and we're going to be talking about perfectionism. But before we dive into that conversation, Michael, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start out by saying that I'm a coach, and I relate to myself as an artist in some ways. And the art that I'm perfecting in this lifetime is the art of human transformation. And so I have a strong interest. This is great with the phone ringing, perfectionism as a topic. You just go with it. You just go with it. Whatever shows up, you just go with it. But for much of my life, I was a perfectionist in ways, a secret perfectionist, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But my background started as a chemical engineer, and then I was just totally sick of that career and doing that, and I jumped into entrepreneurship, where I had a company in nightlife marketing, and then after that company, I had one where I was helping international students adapt to American culture and I was doing that as a speaker, and I wrote a book and doing some other things. And that's kind of what started my foray into actually being of service to people, where I started studying very deeply ontological life coaching. And that ontology is a study of being, Penny. So there's a new word for you today.
Excellent. Oncology.
Yes. So started doing that, business coaching, marketing coaching, all of this stuff, and just kind of mixing that in with spiritual development. And so that's led me to work with thousands of entrepreneurs at this point, in a one-on-one capacity, speaking, and also doing retreats in some different areas around the globe.
Wow,
fantastic.
Very cool.
Yay.
So how long was that journey?
What's that?
How long was that journey?
The journey of life for me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm 33 now, so that's been the full journey.
Well, professional journey, I guess, is what I mean.
Oh, the professional journey. So professional journey has been 10 years at this point. And that's about the time from, like, what started my journey was I read the 4-Hour Work Week. And I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but it's a book that Tim Ferriss wrote about escaping the 9-to-5. And that's what actually piqued my interest in being an entrepreneur.
Oh,
Great.
fantastic.
Wonderful. So I know Penny had some questions about perfectionism, and we wanted to talk with you, Michael.
Exactly. Hang on just one second. I'm going to go see if I can adjust. The sun just came out, so now I'm all blinded.
Penny's got this perfect light right there in the dining room that when the sun comes up from behind the cloud, it's rather startling. There we go. That's better.
I think that helped a little bit. The sun is still there, but I turned on some other lights. Anyway, Facebook Live, right? Woo! Okay, so why did you decide to specialize in perfectionism, Michael?
Well, it's a topic that I find to be very near and dear to my heart, because it stopped me in so many of my goals and so many of the things that I wanted to do in life, and actually being who I am. So we've had a couple things. We've had a phone ring, and we've had some light come in, right, blocking you. And this is the type of stuff. This is just examples of what happens when you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to put your best work out in the world. You're trying to actually live up to some expectation that you have in your mind. And this can actually cause a deep amount of pain. So for me, when I started out, I had an idea of what success was that I learned from magazines, that I learned from other people, mentors. And when I was starting on my entrepreneurial journey, rather than share the struggle and the pain that I was going through and the difficulties I was having, I kept the veneer of everything's great over here. Nobody needs to look. Nobody needs to look over here. But my life was literally falling apart in every imaginable way.
Oh, wow. So kind of like you were putting on a mask of everything being great rather than actually having it at the core.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's very, very wise of you, Penny.
I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, pretty much everyone I've ever spoken to does in some regard. But
so go ahead.
Well, so how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways that I wanted to talk about, like how perfectionism shows up before jumping into like how do you actually work with that. Mm-hmm. So there can be the veneer of just like the mask of everything's good over here, and with people that I've spoken with over the years, it can appear as a veneer of like my health is all good, my relationships all good, my finances are all good. And all of those things can be off, and if you're not actually sharing that with the world, it creates this sense of isolation and separation and sometimes depression. So that's one way. The other way is that perfectionism actually stops pretty much everyone from expressing their true self through their creativity. And as an entrepreneur, we're creating something that has never been done before. There's no rule book, there's no handbook, there's no 7-step process of this is how it's going to work. And whether it be a new idea of a new idea for a company, or a new product, or a new service, or a new way of doing sales, a new way of hiring someone, fear of not being perfect, of actually things going wrong that you can't control, can stop you. And I'll speak from my own experience. It stops me from actually launching some of these things into the world.
Oh, okay. So can we maybe get that down to like a real world example? Like, for instance, I own a pie shop, and I take a lot of pride in my pies. Okay, and so I'm trying to make the perfect pecan pie. Mm-hmm. So at what point do you think I should just like stop trying and say that it's good enough versus just keep going and finding that perfect pecan pie?
Yeah. Well, okay. Can I ask you a question, Penny? Have you sold any of the pies yet, or you're still trying to perfect it?
Oh, absolutely. I have sold some pies, but I don't always have pecan pie on my shelf because I feel like some of them are okay, and it seems like a waste to just throw it out after I've made it, but I'm still not quite satisfied with it. So, I kind of maybe charge a little bit less for the pecan pie.
This is an amazing example. I love this.
Oh, excellent.
And this is a perfect example. So if you're judging yourself constantly, what does that actually do to you, Penny?
Well, I'm certainly not very happy with the product.
Yeah.
With myself with it, yeah.
Right. So if you're constantly judging like what you're putting out and judging your pies and how good they are and judging how much you're charging and undercharging and all of this stuff, right, then it just creates a whole pile of mental anguish for you, I'm sure.
So much anxiety. You don't even know. Pecan pies are just, maybe I shouldn't even do pecan pies. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you just get to the point where you're like, why am I doing this? Right. Why am I still in the pie game?
Well, I mean, most of my pies are definitely, what I would consider perfect. My grasshopper pie is to die for. Yeah, so I'm not getting out of the pie business anytime soon. But pecans, well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I love pecan pies, and I just really want to make it right.
Yeah. So this is a prime example of where, rather than be present in the process of making the pies and becoming better at the pies over time, right? There's a possibility that you're actually judging it, not enjoying the process, building up that anxiety, yeah, and then as a result, everything else in life becomes less enjoyable.
Yeah, I've lost sleep over it.
and not only that, Penny, but if you're losing sleep over it, then you're probably not as present as you could be in your everyday life, and you might miss an opportunity of some other creative thought that comes into your mind, like a blueberry pie.
Right. Oh, just like completely unrelated to the pecan pie, but it's like taking up so much in my head. I can't even think about other things. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So, Michael, where is the line between perfectionism and wanting things to really just be good? Because with a pecan pie, as an example, if you get a bad pecan in your pecan pie, it can ruin your day. So
bad.
Going through the pecans and making sure that you actually have, good quality nuts in your pie is kind of an important thing. But there's a difference between making sure that, you're not using bad nuts versus making sure that your measurements are on to the exact grain of sugar or something like that. Where is the line between having something be good enough and needing it to be really, truly perfect to the point where you experience failure to launch or it's ruining the process for you? Where is the line?
Yeah. Well, I always think of the line as a dance, right? So in a dance, it's a very fluid motion. And, if you learn salsa, for instance, then there's steps that go to salsa, right? But if you're watching a salsa pair dance and they're very rigid, and they're just doing the steps, it doesn't actually look that good. It doesn't look beautiful.
Right.
Whereas if they're improvising as they're doing the steps and they're actually in flow with each other, then it looks like this beautiful piece of art. And so is the same with entrepreneurship. The line must be danced upon, because there is no this is the way it is for one individual. Mm-hmm. And this is why I love working with people one-on-one, because it really is art. Like, we're creating art. And if you're too rigid, then you lose the joy, because you're just constantly trying to be perfect. And if you're too loose, then you end up making a bunch of really terrible pies.
Right. So it sounds like what you're saying is that perfection is boring. So who would want to be perfect anyway? Because it removes any possibility for spontaneous majesty, for lack of a better word. That there's no chance to have something truly unexpectedly amazing in our lives if everything is perfect, because perfect is exactly the same every time.
Well, I could probably also save quite a bit of money, because, I'm in there, or I have an employee in there picking out all of the broken pecans, because, of course, the pie only has whole pecans in it, right?
Oh my gosh, Penny.
That probably takes some time. Yeah.
The broken pecans taste just as good.
What? Yeah, but the texture. I see what you're saying. No, I think that the broken pecans would probably be fine. So yeah, I could go with that and save hours of work on my pecan pie day.
You're gonna have to charge thousands of dollars for this pie.
But then even if you charge thousands, the profit is so small, because there's so much work going in.
Right.
Maybe I'll sell a whole bunch of imperfect pies and make one perfect pie that actually is $1,000. See if anybody buys it.
So that would be a really good experiment to run. Have your regular pecan pie out there for $20 or whatever for the whole pie, and then have the one that only has whole pecans in it for $200, and see who goes for the one that has only whole pecans. Figure out how much that means to your client base.
Right.
Right, and this is a perfect example of creativity, right? In motion. This is just happening, and this is an idea that, Penny, you didn't have before because you were so focused on the perfect pie.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Well, this has been very helpful.
That's great. I'm very excited. And one other piece I wanted to hit on was perfection, like in the business, can sometimes take away from your life outside of the business, right? And so I like to talk about people creating a daring mindset in some way, right? And I say that a daring mindset is consisting of the ABCs. So it's very simple to remember: aliveness, boldness, and consciousness. And yeah. And so an example of this was like I worked with a lawyer, and when he started working with me, he had a decent sized business, but he was really unhappy. And so there were some of these ideas of perfectionism floating around, but there was also the idea built into that he had to work from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. every night, and just constantly like push himself in his business. And so when I first talked to him, I said, what do you seem really down and like out of energy. What do you love doing? And he said, well, I love surfing more than anything. And I said, when's the last time you went surfing? And he said, 2 years ago.
Oh,
wow.
That's sad.
2 years ago. Penny, what do you love doing?
Ooh, well, I love, besides making pies, of course, anytime I get to talk to Ingrid about my books, that's always exciting. I really do the entrepreneurial thing quite a bit. As far as fun, wow. I like watching Sesame Street.
Yeah, well, great.
Muppets, actually, I really like the Muppets.
Well, imagine if you couldn't watch the Muppets for 2 years.
Oh, that would be so sad. What would I do without my Kermit?
Do you know the Muppets Christmas Carol is one of my favorite movies of all time? So we're on the same page there.
Excellent.
But so this guy hadn't surfed in 2 years, and he came to me to talk about business, and I was like, go get on your surfboard. Like I dare you to get on your surfboard this weekend. And so he took that there, and he got on his surfboard, and he started doing more of these things that he loved doing. And again, it was stepping outside of his idea of what an entrepreneur was. That perfectionism of this is what an entrepreneur does and looks like. Yeah. And so sure enough, over time, like his energy came back, his creativity came back, and he started to do more of these things, like charge more and create pies that were different kinds and charge different rates for them. Right. And sure enough, his business tripled over the course of the next 2 years. So this is what happens when you start to let go of these ideas of perfectionism in the sense of success, what an entrepreneur is, who you are, and you start to really get tapped into your truth.
We all need wholeness and balance in our lives, and it's important to have rich, full lives that have variety and diversity in them, and make sure that we're pursuing the things that we love, and we love more than just our work. Now, of course, if you're an entrepreneur, theoretically, you started this business because you love what you do, and if you don't enjoy it, go get a job. Right? But that means that we also need to have other things in our lives. You might really, really enjoy eating chocolate, but if you're not also experiencing other foods, then you're probably going to die of malnutrition. And it's the same with the activities in our lives. We have to do other things besides work, even if we really enjoy our work, or we're going to get burned out. And it's amazing how much we hold so tightly to the things that we think that we should be doing, when should is a dirty 6-letter word. If we can remove it from our vocabulary, that would be great. Anytime we think the word should, we just need to ask ourselves, okay, what do I want right now? What do I really, really want? And sometimes what we want and what we need is to get out of the work grind a little bit and take a break. Go take a walk. Go do something else we enjoy. Go have a conversation with a puppet.
Exactly. So, Michael, you earlier you said about the ABC of getting over your perfectionism and daring. And so that was aliveness, boldness, and confidence, was it?
Consciousness.
Consciousness.
Very close.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So, can you elaborate a little bit more on those?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I call it having a daring mindset. And so just living your life in a daring way and daring to be who you are. So aliveness is, the way I like to explain aliveness is to think of yourself as a garden. And your garden has like a bunch of different stuff in it, right? A bunch of different plants and trees and flowers and all of this stuff, streams, and all of them need certain things to actually grow and flourish, right? And these different parts of your garden. And if you're not attending a certain part of your garden, then it starts to die. And imagine walking into a vast garden where one corner or a bunch of parts of it are just black and dead.
Or you're certainly going to deal with those first, right?
Yeah, you got to wake them back up, right? And so this is your being, this is your essence, and actually getting to the truth of that. So I really believe strongly that there's a key mind, body, spirit connection, and having that strong connection brings this like sense of aliveness, this sense of magic back into your life. Boldness is being able to step into the unknown, is being able to take actions in faith that one would normally not take, right? Because of fear, and fear is always going to be present with every human being. But boldness is the thing that allows one to step through that fear, right? While it's still present, and take the actions anyways. And then consciousness, this is your awareness. And so when I work with people, one of the things that we dive into are the conscious and subconscious patterns that actually show up in our lives. They show up in our relationships. And these patterns are things that we get from a very young age, right? So whether it be, I'll use myself, like a couple of mine are like, I'm not lovable and I'm not good enough, right? And so those were beliefs that were drilled into my head for one reason or another as a kid, and kind of shaped my world and how I perceived myself and how I took actions and all of this stuff. But once someone actually has awareness of these things, then they have the power to choose and choose differently. And then there's much more that goes into raising your consciousness, but actually being able to be in a place of peace and have that stillness within you while all of everything else is happening around you. But having that stillness at all times really allows you to do a lot more with your business. So those are the three broken down pretty quickly.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And so with your example with the surfer friend, he took your advice and went surfing, which was a very bold move, right? And because of that, he was able to find his aliveness and his passion for life, and he was much more conscious about what was going on in his business as a result of that. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, there was quite a bit more that went on.
Well, sure.
in the understanding of the self, but sure, that's a simple way of how it works. Yes.
Oh, very cool.
Fantastic. We have just a few minutes left, and I think there's like just a few points that I want to make sure that we get to cover. One of the things that's coming to my mind, particularly with, I loved how you talked about daring. And it made me think about Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, which she talks about how if we focus on sharing our vulnerability with others, that it can really change everything, that we can have deeper, real human connections with the people around us. And that really that's a lot of what business is how are we serving our customers? How are we connecting more deeply with our colleagues? How are we, getting served as a customer? And bringing these relationships into our lives. And that in order to do that on a deep, integral human level, we need to be able to expose ourselves a little bit. And that putting on a professional veneer of perfectionism really isn't serving anybody. It's just cutting ourselves off from the depth of potential human connection, when the truth is that success is messy. Anybody who's looking around and comparing themselves to others by association, particularly on social media, never compare your insides to somebody else's outsides. It just makes a big, nasty mess.
Oh, yeah.
And no one is perfect. And if anybody says otherwise, then, you know, they probably have some things that they're hiding.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's very interesting. Like, I wrote a post. So social media is this super interesting thing that it provides so much amazing connection, and then it distorts connection in this weird way where everyone puts out their like most perfect self. And I did a post recently about an experience I had a couple months ago of going through a deep sadness and somewhat depression and meaningless, seeing some of the things I was doing as meaninglessness. And this is actually very normal in the spiritual path to have those sorts of experiences. But talking about it publicly, so many people reached out and were like, oh my God, I've been going through the same thing and I've been experiencing this and all of this stuff. And literally out of the thousands of business owners that I've talked to, one-on-one, personal experiences, there is not one that I've ever talked to that has all of their stuff together, right? Everyone's life is a mess in some way at some point in time, because especially business owners, we're stretching beyond what we know.
Absolutely.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love about the Ask a Bookkeeper Facebook group and this community that we're in right now. And thanks to everyone who's watching us live on Facebook and who might watch us later on YouTube. We're working to create a community where there are no stupid questions, where we recognize that everyone has to start somewhere, and where we're working to raise each other up, because we're creating that rising tide that raises all ships. And having to be perfect is just not part of it. So we welcome all comers to this Facebook group who want to come and experience business success and learn how to do this in a way that's going to make us happy and bring in a good livelihood and let more people follow their dreams, because that's what it's really all about. We're working to empower your passion, whatever you're doing in your business. So with that, thank you so much, Michael. It is 9:30, so I think we're going to wrap up. Do you have any last little parting points for our audience today?
Yeah, my parting points would be, one, share, like, go out today and share something that you've been holding back, like a struggle you've been holding back with somebody, or in this Facebook group, even better. Actually, like, write the post that you've been wanting to write, like, ask for help in some way.
Fantastic.
Free yourself.
Wonderful. Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
I'm gonna go forward on those pecan pies, and I'm just gonna make them.
I can't wait to taste them, Penny. It's gonna be awesome. Yeah. I will eat your pecan pie any day.
All right.
Great. Thanks so much to you both. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
It was great to meet you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.